Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Meet Me in the Penthouse. This is Molly Croker and my sister, Amy Mosser. And today, one of our favorite topics, and we've been listening, I feel like, to a lot of podcasts. We tend to be on the same wave without even telling each other, like, oh my gosh, did you hear this podcast? Oh my gosh, I listened to somebody else on this. But I think it's so great to talk about fear. And maybe it's because we both have had some scary things come up. I'm training for another race, another half Ironman. And let me just tell you, I don't love swimming in lakes, and I live on one, for Pete's sake. So fear has come up all the time for me. Fear is coming up for Amy in different ways, different areas of her life. But I read such a great email, and I loved this about fear. And I love this perspective of what people are actually evaluating. It's not the opportunity anymore, it's the risk, right? And that's all fear is it's a risk. Like, what is the risk for this? And honestly, it's a game you're never going to win, ever. You're never going to win it because there's no amount, I love this, there's no amount of thinking that can guarantee certainty. There's no amount of research that can guarantee success. I want to say that again. There's no amount of research that can guarantee success. And there's no amount of preparation that can remove disappointment. So all of those things to say, it's never going to be completely risk-free. It's always going to be fearful. And everything, and I love this, at some point, every meaningful thing in life requires faith before there's proof. And you've probably heard us on a lot of other podcasts talk about faith over fear, and you hear that a lot, but you're like, really, what does that mean? And here's the thing, you'll never have the proof. You'll never hear the proof. And so
that's where faith comes in. And that's, yes. I think fear it's what holds everybody back because there is no proof.
There's no proof.
But when you go further and you ask them if money were no object, or because oftentimes, what is it? Money or
what people think of you,
the opinions of others, whatever. That is what holds people back. And when you finally say, what if money's not an issue? Or what if you just drown out what other people think? What if they were cheering for you? Of course, people would go for it, if they knew they wouldn't go broke. But of course, that's not guaranteed. Nothing is ever guaranteed.
No.
And so fear keeps you in complacency.
Yes. And I think, and this is something so big, sadly enough, you're not that important. The people are talking about you at the end of the night. They're worried about themselves. They're not worried about you. But at the time you think, oh no, they're thinking about me. They're talking about me. I always think, who is they? Who is they? So it's probably one person that you think. And honestly, they're not paying your bills. They're not paying for your kid to go to college. I promise you. So
yeah. And I want to go back to, you mentioned your training for your Ironman and swimming in the lake. I mean, that's a real fear. I live on the lake too, and I have never even dipped my toe into it because I don't want to get my hair wet, number one.
Yes. But
you
get blowouts twice a week.
Let's talk about just like a physical, like that fear of, I don't want to get into the water.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even yesterday, actually, I was so cold. I was cold from the night before, and I had people coming out to my house. And I even texted and said, you guys, you know what? I'm so cold. I can't even imagine, even in a wetsuit, getting in. But yes, was I cold? Yes. But honestly, I did not want to get in that. Yeah. I just was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I sent the message, and thank you, Jesus. They both canceled on me anyway because they both overslept. I'm like, well, this is a little silver lining here. But I've been doing this for 23 years now, 23 years, and it still doesn't get easier. In fact,
which, by the way, I don't blame you. I do not blame you, by the way, for not wanting to swim. I mean, I'm just saying, I think 100 people out of 100 people would say they don't blame you for being fearful.
And it's the cleanest, like there's no weird things. It's so clean. And I think, I've swam in way worse when Sophie was little and would watch me from the edge, but I don't know. And it's easier than ever to walk down the beach and there I am versus having to drive there and do it on my own. I'm like, oh my gosh, I always have somebody with me. I even had my husband say, hey, I noticed you didn't get out there. You just got back from run. Do you want to go? And I said, no, he's going to paddleboard beside me for Pete's sake. Like,
but it's the same as fear holds people back from going walking through those gym doors, right?
Oh my gosh.
I'm out of shape. I don't know how to use the treadmill.
And that's who should be there. That is who should be there, are the people that have never been at the gym. And I think about that all the time. Good for you. With our last guest. I love it because we're all 5 a.m.ers. We're up at 4:15. Don't talk to us at 9 p.m. But I mean, those are the people that they know where the equipment is. They know how to use it. They're not scared. But actually, those are not even the people that should be there. I mean, for their health, it's everybody that's too scared to even walk in the door.
And that will continue to keep people in there, sitting in their recliners, not even getting out. And I'll tell you, I am an extrovert, but there's a lot of fear that still overcomes me. I flew to Nashville to a brand builder group by myself, and I love to travel by myself. But when it came time for me to get into a room of successful realtors, I will stand right up in. But when it came to this, just building my brand and getting into a room of authors and podcasters and entrepreneurs, I really wanted to quit. I started to look. I told Molly this is what I do. I look at flying home early. So I'm looking at the airlines.
It's a habit of yours.
Every single time. I'm like, I'm unworthy of being in this room. I do look at the planes.
Overcoming it.
But I stayed there. I mean, I stayed there. I spoke on the microphone. In fact, I had some woman tell me, which I thought this was so kind. She's like, have you ever seen the movie Swingers? There's a gal there that is what? Like, she said, you're so money and you don't even know it. She's like, you're so badass. But then I Googled it and it's like, you're so money and you don't even realize it. And that meant you're so amazing and you don't even realize it.
Yes.
That was what this lady told me. And this is as I was, after I put the phone down, because they're like, Amy, why are you here? What is your, what are your pillars, things of that sort. I put my phone down searching for plane tickets on the way home because I'd already created an exit strategy, and Molly knows that I do this. And I had to, so fear still is something that I experience often. I just push past it.
Oh, every day. I mean, whether it's as simple as a phone call, I have friends that are scared to even pick up the phone just to call, and I ordered
pizza.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, like, oh gosh, I'm so scared to do that. But even last week, I subbed in for a really high level tennis team, and I heard that they are not very nice. And I thought, am I going to show up and leave the courts crying? But nobody did ask me for my phone number afterwards. That means that they weren't impressed with me. They don't want to have me sub again.
Or they didn't want you, or they were too impressed with you, and they're like, we don't want to.
I was shaking in my boots before I walked up there. So honestly thinking, I hope something hits me. I hope I get struck down with some horrible illness. No, I just was scared. But you know what? It always works out better than you think. But you'll never know. You'll never know until you do it. So we want to at least give you we call them 3 pillars of just on fear, right? So fear isn't protecting you anymore. It's costing you. And you've heard us share that already. Amy would have missed out on the opportunity in Nashville had she come home early. And I will compliment you.
And I was on a couple of podcasts.
You were on a few podcasts. You got to become friends with some other people, and you have been doing this less and less and less, which is great. Now you're just looking, you're not actually taking action, which is good. Yes. So you are pushing past the fear. But again, you won't ever know. It will, most people focus on the fear of failure, but they never calculate the cost of inaction. And I think that's such a powerful thing to ask you is what is this inaction costing you? And go down that rabbit hole instead of it's so scary. Well, then what is the fear costing you of inaction, of staying exactly where you are? And is that okay?
And I went to do to help a gal. We're getting ready to list her house. And I had been over there like 3 weeks ago, kind of giving her that list of what to do and how we'll stage it. She wanted me to come back, and I went back there again. And it looked the exact same. She hadn't done anything. And she's like, I am so overwhelmed. Fear, right? Mm-hmm. I'm so fearful of this next move. They're moving to an unknown state. They're just really taking a leap of faith, that she's so fearful of what's next that she hasn't taken any action. And it was lovely. She kind of owned it herself. Like, oh my gosh, I'm just so overwhelmed. And I said, that can happen. But once you get started, once you get past the fear, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, as I moved to New Mexico to this beautiful new home. But, even in the smallest ways, getting your house ready to sell, putting your house on the market, changing jobs, right? Putting your resume out there for perhaps a new job.
And fear will look like overwhelm. It'll look like anxiety. You'll see those two connected. And I know I've even shared this with my daughter. I'm like, those two things, fear and anxiety, feel the same. They feel the same. And so let's label it something different. Let's label it excitement. So whether it's overwhelm, whether it's anxiety, whether it's, it scares me, that's all fear.
And we know fear is false evidence appearing real. It doesn't even happen.
Right.
Anxiety is, anticipating something that hasn't even happened
yet. It's the future.
Yet.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like, well, what if? And it's like, well, what if it works out better? And we've done that on a podcast. What if it works out better than what you thought? What if it does? Because what is this opportunity costing you of you not moving forward? And also ask yourself the question of, okay, in 5 years from now, I don't take action on this. And I love this. Maybe it's a property or, for us, when both of us chose to purchase homes or townhouses, homes for our kids when they went to college. Had we not done that, they would not be able to roll into what they have today. And so what is that fear costing you in 5 years? In 5 years, like really sit down and think about these. So, okay, pillar number 2.
Pillar number 2 is confidence comes from evidence, not thinking. So that is where you decide that there is no evidence and you step out in confidence. Confidence. And it can be delusional confidence. We've talked about that. Stepping out in delusional confidence and knowing, for me, one of the things I think of when fear overcomes me is God has always gotten me. He's never let me down. He has never let me down. He's not going to let me down yet. And I have never failed. Of course, I failed, but I don't even look at it as failure. So I won't fail. The failure is not an option. If I think about taking a risk of, an investment or investing in a coach, I have never, it's been the best thing I've ever done. Am I fearful of having 10, 20, 30 grand leave my account to invest in a coach? Yes. But it has impacted my life tenfold from the time I have invested in myself. And that's always so fearful because it is something that not a lot of people get and not a lot of people do.
Right, right. But if you look around, and we've talked about this on a podcast, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And so when you look at the women that are showing up in life, they are winning, they are successful. Remember, that's whatever you determine is success. That's on you. You get to decide what success looks like. But those are women that have coaches. And it's not like that doesn't come being scared or, oh my gosh, what if this doesn't work out? We all ask ourselves that same thing. Even as I went to invest in a coaching and I said, can you even split it into 2 payments? And guess what? They didn't. They just went whoop, all on one. Guess what? The money appeared. It always does.
Yes. It always works out. And so your confidence isn't fed by researching. Your confidence, again, we talk about this, goes back to our journal that has come out. She knows. It goes back to just trusting your knowing. For us, it's getting quiet, listening to, your intuition will tell you.
Yes.
When you
have to slow down though and be by yourself. It's not forever, but just even 5 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
So you do have time to listen to that inner knowing, that inner voice.
And to help you rationalize through the fear. There are no fish in the lake that are going to.
There is, Jaws is not there. The Loch Ness Monster is not there.
At Sandy Point. For me, I am not going to, I am worthy. There are people are not thinking, what's this woman from Nebraska, doing with her business plan? The fear is what is just, it doesn't even happen. It's not even real.
It's the overthinking.
the overthinking. And how many of us do that? Me at 3 a.m, right?
Yes. Thank you, Jesus. I don't have that
3
issue.
a.m. overthinking, but I know there's a lot of you that do.
There are. And I'm not one of them, but you do have a small tribe of women that are right there overthinking at 3 a.m. So I'm glad I'm not there. But I love this last pillar. Fear and expansion always travel together. So the biggest misunderstanding is believing fear means stop. And I don't know how many times they'll say, oh, I listen to my gut. I trust my gut. Well, how do you, honestly, fear told you to stop? Like, I saw this sign, I'm trying to think of something funny other than what my mother-in-law said of a big old heron pooped on her jet ski. And she's like, I took that as a sign I should turn around and not go out into the water. And I'm like, was that really a sign? I don't think it was. That was one that came to mind.
People think of signs is when something isn't moving as quickly. So God has placed a dream in your heart. For us, it's building this massive community of women. And, things, we had momentum and then we had to pivot. And I have never once said, oh, maybe this isn't meant to be. Because it still is something at 3 a.m. that God is saying, I have called you to this.
Yes.
It is happening. It's not in my time. It's in God's time. But I think so many people quit 3 feet from gold because they interpret, as I eat the microphone, they interpret the pause, the need to pivot, maybe just a temporary loss of momentum as, nope.
Exactly.
Fear sets in and they're like, oh, this wasn't meant to be. I shouldn't have been listening. If it was not meant to be, the dream would have never been placed on your heart.
Right. And uncertainty. People take uncertainty as a sign of fear. Like, oh, that's a sign to stop. No, it's not. I still get butterflies. Amy still gets butterflies. That is not a sign to stop. I always say if I keep showing up at a race and I don't have butterflies at this point in my career, I am an average mom, an average athlete who just loves doing this. At no point, I remember saying, well, why would you run a race if you're getting slower? Now I know all these years later, but I love the butterflies in my stomach. It just means that I want to do my very best. And guess what? And I say this all the time on my social media is every time you push past fear, it's like a check mark for confidence. It's another check, it's like, There's a little more confidence, sister. There's a little more confidence, sister. I know you made that phone call. There's a little more confidence. And so I love that about that last pillar of just fear and expansion always travel together. It doesn't matter whether it's a promotion, a business, a race, a stage, a relationship, they go together.
And so I think Molly and I were asking each other questions like, what's something that you push through fear and you're so glad you did? But I will look at the very monumental things. Many of mine have to do with businesses and with a financial success, with my son's healing, with trusting my intuition on relationships, right? As I built a real estate team on just trusting my intuition and not letting fear consume me that I maybe didn't align with someone that wasn't it. So I really think that pushing through fear has been just the whole reason for my success, and I have been blessed. And even the times that there was a little bit of fear, a little bit of uneasiness that maybe I continued to push past, and it didn't work out exactly as I thought. It all worked out exactly as it should. Right? It was even better. God even had a better plan. So pushing through that fear it's not a good or bad. It will send you exactly where you're supposed to. And I think we just had a guest on, Van Deeb, that we recorded, and we asked him, what would be some of your biggest regrets? And he's like, not buying land in 1990 when Omaha was, only out to, or whenever it was only out to, 100th Street or whatever. So again, fearful. I'm fearful of what I'm like sitting on land and financially. And I'm sure that's exactly what it was. Right. And how many times do we do that? And then you think, oh, if I would have known what I know now, I would have done it. Right. I mean, of course, hindsight's 20/20.
Yes. Well, and I think it's fun to hear these little tips from your sisters, from your coaches, from your friends. But I also think in today's world, people want more vulnerability and authenticity. So we're going to ask each other some questions, because I think letting you get to know us a little bit better, and maybe you can reflect on these questions as well. So I'm going to ask Amy this one. When you look back on your life, what are you most grateful you did, even though you were terrified?
I would say leaving my marriage for sure. Leaving everything I knew, finances, all of our friends, all of the beautiful country club life that we had. I would not be where I am today had I stayed. I'm incredibly grateful for the 20 years I did have and the beautiful children. But I look back and think I was so fearful. And you've heard me say this before, but my therapist, I was sitting in my therapist's office and listing all the reasons, fear, why I couldn't leave. Finances, the life we'd built, what would people think? How am I going to do it without him? You know, all of his contacts, you know, I had just felt like everything was about him being the prize, him being the connector. And my therapist looked at me and said, Amy, have you ever considered that you are the prize? And I'd never considered that I was the prize. I was so fearful. Mm-hmm. And I look at myself now and at everything that we built. It was my connections. It was my persistence, my hard work.
Your
it was the
compassion for
relationships,
people.
my compassion for people. And
your honesty
and integrity.
Yes.
It was all my doing. I was the prize, but yet I was so fearful that I would be a nobody without him. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that I pushed past the fear and stepped out on my own for my children and myself.
Yeah, that's a big one.
What is the greatest fear? Failing or looking back with regret?
Oh, that's a good one. I think knowing that I operate in the present, it's failing. It's failing. I don't think I comprehend even the amount of, oh gosh, what will I regret? I think it's just failing, looking like a fool. Back to the what will people think, right? A perfectionism trait that a lot of us that are perfectionists struggle with is, oh my goodness, what if I fail? And we all know, well, what if it works? Honestly, what if it works? And I love just, again, John Maxwell's book, Failing Forward. That is how we get anywhere in life. It's like you look. The thing that is so cool is now I look back and I don't even see them as failures.
Yes.
So
just lessons. Yes. They all happen for us.
It's not looking back with regret. It's honestly just fearing failure at that point, but then knowing and being ahead, saying, "Wow, look at what that failure did for me." You know, is it failing that I left my physical therapy career after 10 years? Oh my gosh, no. But at the time, I thought, oh my goodness, what if I leave this job, this safe job where I get a check every 2 weeks, and I go all in on the social selling business and it just doesn't work? I mean, holy heck, that was a huge, and I did. What will people think? What are people, are they going to think this? Are my physical therapy friends going to talk to me? What will everyone think of me? And I remember an orthopedic surgeon that I respected and worked very closely with, who they couldn't have their own children, so they adopted. I remember he saw me one day at a place called Paint Yourself Silly, when you could go in to paint your pottery. And he said, "You were one of the best. Why did you leave?" And I said, honestly, what you have right here this minute, I have every single day with my kids. And I didn't have to ask anyone for permission. And I had tears in my eyes and he had tears in his eyes. And that's the last time I saw him. And I just thought, oh, that felt so good. And yet his opinion of me before I left was, what will he think? What is he going to think? And I think, oh my gosh. And that's so impactful that I thought of that the other day. I just thought, oh my gosh, how that obviously resonated with him and landed heavy for him just as well as for me.
I feel like we are now like moving into an era of empowerment way more than when you quit your job.
Yes.
Of pushing through fear and of quitting your job, of starting the business. of stepping out of relationships that no longer serve you. I feel like that is more common now.
Yes.
And so it's so lovely how it's evolved. I mean, there's still, of course, fear and stigmas and all of that.
And no guarantees, obviously.
But it is, I love how far we've come. And it's probably our delusional confidence and maybe my algorithm, but that's all I see are like people like, yep, I'm 50 and I did this and I signed up for this and I bought
and I moved to Tuscany here on this.
Yes, which is what, yes.
Which, okay, that is, I love that. Okay, this is a good one. What would you attempt if you knew no one would judge you, criticize you, or question your decision? I think I'm asking you all the questions that I actually want to answer. So,
well, you can answer.
No, I love that. I just love that. What decision?
Well, and I think
what would you attempt if no one would judge you, criticize you,
and I'm writing my book, so it's everything that I'm doing. But I think I have drugged my feet on some things. I also would be.
Let's go to writing your book.
Writing my book, just getting it to the finish line. It was almost there, and then it was, I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. There were some personal stories in there, and I wanted to make sure that they landed, and so I used that as more of a therapy book. And now, so getting that to the finish line, and then I think the biggest thing that I just know we're about to birth is this community of women that we've already built once in another arena, but we're doing it here locally first. And God just keeps putting, today was another validation and confirmation that we are exactly where we're supposed to be with it. But, I've always done multiple businesses. I've always had multiple streams of income.
Yes.
And, sort of recently a leader, said to me, well, people may not know what you're doing, that you're in real estate or not. And I'm like, I've always posted the same stuff on social media, my travels, my women's empowerment, and so I thought, why am I going to take advice from somebody who's not made ever the near amount of money that I've made, who is not in the trenches, who's not in the ring, and who's not me? Because let me tell you, that's one of the things I have had somebody say is, and I'm so grateful, to God be the glory, but I cannot believe that you make as much money as you do, and you make it look easy and effortless. And I'm like, I'm going to take that as a compliment. It was the CEO of our company years ago that said, you make it look easy and effortless for, the money that you make with all of your businesses. Yes. And they don't know that I'm up at 3 a.m. stressing, but, that is, I receive that. And also, I still live in fear sometimes of people, of like that identity of like, not being the realtor, not being like, what is she doing to create this community that I know I'm called to? I almost feel like it's our neighbor who's getting into the ministry now, and some of them who have sold their companies, and that is so fearful, I know, for everybody, but we are in such good company. And I know we are being called. This is exactly where we're supposed to be, is to create this community. We've done it all along. But just this massive movement, and
bigger scale. And I feel a little unworthy, and, the how, and I'm not the detail person, but Molly and I are the rainmakers. And that's what our calling has been. And the great news is we have people who love the details. And so we have the best team ever. Yes. But it's a heavy lift. It's been a heavy lift, but nothing has ever been done by anybody, right, without having a heavy lift. This Herd Out studio, Bill, it was a heavy lift for Bill, to come up with this idea. So it's a heavy lift, and we're in the middle of like the heavy lift, but I just cannot wait to see what happens as we're just about there. So I love that.
Yes. Okay. So fear. If you knew you couldn't fail, what one decision would you make today if you knew you couldn't fail?
If I knew I couldn't fail, I would literally move to Europe and live there for 6 months. Not because I want to get away from my husband. I absolutely adore my husband. He can come over there, but I've always been obsessed with travel. I've always traveled. Yes. I love the exchange students. We've hosted them. I loved them in high school. I love travel. I love different languages. I love learning different things about people. And honestly, I love the slower pace. And it just appeals to me. So if it did not, and we're doing it this fall,
Yes.
but I would do it for 6 months, and the timing is right. And I would absolutely love to do that.
Molly keeps saying that she's like, I need to get you over there and traveling with me before you have grandkids because
Yes, because then I'm going to lose her
she
to
keeps
a
saying,
baby.
I'm like, lose me to a baby.
Yeah, we'll see, definitely. But I just, that's the one thing I would do without a hesitation if it wasn't the logistics of, well, where are you going to live for 6 months and how much is that and all the things, because at the end of the day, there's so many places out there. And so if you have a hookup, you just let me know.
Yes. And as we bring this in for a landing, dreaming about our Italian trip,
Our Italian villa.
And if you want to join us, and we will be creating experiences in other countries. That is the other thing, is like, that is all what we know we're supposed to be doing with this community. But maybe the goal isn't to become fearless. Maybe the goal is to trust yourself, your knowing, enough to move while fear is still sitting in the passenger seat. We always say, feel the fear and do it anyway. Mm-hmm. There's a great video on YouTube about skydiving that Will Smith has. Take a second to watch it, but it is pushing through in spite of fear, in spite of the voices, in spite of all the garbage that is going through your head, because that decision that you make to push through most likely is the thing that completely transforms your life and sets you into that freedom and that peace. And freedom and peace gives me a physical reaction when I say those words. Just like fear gives me a physical reaction, but I'm opting for peace and freedom. So thank you for joining us for this episode. Please share this if it resonates. Like us on Apple or Spotify, subscribe, and we'll see you again with another edition of Meet Me in the Penthouse.
Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Meet Me in the Penthouse. And we would love to have you follow us at www.sistersnextdoor.com.
Anywhere that you listen to your podcast, please feel free to give us 5 stars, because we know you're going to find us fabulous, and pass this along to any friends that you know would enjoy this episode.